All right, here we go.
This is an individual whom a federal grand jury indicted for 2 felonies and 4 misdemeanors related to his participation in the attack on January 6th. One of those charges was forcibly assaulting, resisting, opposing, impeding, intimidating, and interfering with police with the intent to commit another felony.
Thank you for joining me.
This is who you choose as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America to hire at the Department of Justice. Someone on video yelling "kill him" at police officers, right?
I believe he was pardoned by President Trump.
Oh, he was pardoned. You're right. You're right. Pardoned by President Trump for his offense.
Come in, everybody, just getting started.
At police officers. And yet you expect hardworking police officers across the country to believe
Donald Trump's Attorney General
that you take law enforcement
Pam Bondi
seriously. You could imagine
what's up, Artek?
the reaction.
The Epstein story just walks straight into the heart of congressional power. We're a little bit behind on this one, but we're going to catch up and do some reactions and commentary. Trump's former Attorney General Pam Bondi is now under oath in front of the House Judiciary Committee. And, you know, a lot of people talk about distractions, distraction from the Epstein Files, you know, and this is probably some very important testimony that we should be catching here.
So many folks.
And I need a break from the Guthrie case, quite honestly.
Across the country, hearing the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States refuse to even condemn what that individual whom you've now hired.
Welcome, everybody.
Did.
Come in.
In any event, let's talk a little bit about some of the other
Breaking
divisions
news, Pam
within the
Bondi
Department of Justice and what's happened over the last year.
The House
You're familiar with the Public
Oversight Committee. That's
Integrity
always
section
fun.
of the DOJ's criminal division.
But this
I think
is
it's
about the
referred to
Epstein
as PIN.
Files.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know which presidential administration under which the PIN was first created?
I can tell you what administration that the weaponization was ended under.
I'll reclaim my time. This wasn't a trick question.
You don't get to
Madam Attorney
reclaim
General.
your time.
Madam Attorney General.
Because I don't like.
Mr. Chairman, will you explain to the witness that he does reclaim his time?
Because I don't answer a question to your satisfaction.
Madam Attorney
is
General,
already
the time
getting
belongs
spicy.
to the gentleman from Colorado.
The president under which PIN was created was Gerald Ford. It was created after Watergate. I'm not asking a question, Madam Attorney General. The administration under which it was created was Gerald Ford. When you first started as the Attorney General of the United States, there were 35 people working in that office. There are now 2 people working in that office because you have gutted it. How many people work for the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team in the criminal division today?
Simonian.
Can I answer the question about PIN?
I've asked you a question. How many people
You've asked
work?
me a question, but you don't
How
want
many
the answer.
people work
I'm not
for the
gonna answer
National
your questions the way you
Cryptocurrency
want.
Enforcement Team? You won't answer how many
I'll
people?
answer PIN.
You.
PIN will not be
you know what?
weaponized.
You know what?
What's
Madam
funny
Attorney
about
General,
this?
I'll say to the chairman.
What's funny about this?
Chairman, you know what the answer is? And I think I
What's
understand
funny
why the
about
Attorney General
this?
does not want to answer the
Wow.
question. Because you eliminated the
the
National
races.
Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team last year. So I
Welcome,
understand why you don't
everybody.
want to tell
Come
the
in,
American
jump in the
people who
chat.
works there.
Yeah, I
no one
understand
works
why
there
you don't want to
anymore,
talk about
Madam
Mohammed
Attorney
Solomon
General.
in
So
your district.
In any event,
who
I would just-
murdered people.
Mr. Chairman, will you stop the clock so his time is not wasted by
I've
the
been
witness?
very generous with allowing extra time.
Welcome,
when we
welcome.
have these little disputes.
I understand.
You got the time.
This is
I might
Attorney
as well
General
ask
Pam Bondi.
the
on the
chairman
Big
these
Head
questions
Podcast.
because
to
what
answer
is
some of your
what's
questions.
profound, the questions I've
Profound?
asked,
Greetings.
crime in your
I've
district.
asked, Mr. Chairman,
Hello, hello.
are not trick questions. They're not gotcha questions. They're actually basic questions about how the Department of Justice functions and the unwillingness
Pam
of this
Bondi
Attorney
under
General
oath.
to answer them in good faith. When a member of Congress asks how many people work at the National Cryptocurrency Enforcement Team and the Attorney General refuses to answer it, it is not a coincidence. It's because she
We're
eliminated
going to be
the
jumping
team.
back on the
Why?
Guthrie case later.
Because
I
her
just
boss-
thought this was quite important for everybody to see. People talk about distractions. It's distracting from the Epstein Files. Well, let's find out if that's actually true in some of this testimony, sworn testimony.
Boss, the President of the United States,
And we're
is
only a
making
little
money
while behind
hand
it.
over fist, $1.4 billion
Part two.
over the course of the last year through cryptocurrency holdings. I think what is happening at the Department of Justice is a disgrace, Mr. Chairman, and I
Hit
would
that
urge
like button.
to gain control of this hearing. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Yeah. I would ask the gentleman, does he agree with the standing up of the Deputy Attorney General for dealing with fraud. That's something that's happened in this administration. First time. You talked about Penn. That happened with this Justice Department.
We're talking about this committee. Mr. Chairman, had you answered the question, had the Attorney General answered the question in that way,
Here's everyone.
perhaps
Welcome.
this hearing would have some modicum of resembling something that has typically been fairly conventional, an oversight hearing of the Department of Justice.
The gentleman's
That is
time has
not this.
expired. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Attorney General Bondi, I want to express my gratitude to the President, you and your team for your continued efforts against extreme anti-energy policies taken by states and cities that serve only to increase costs on
Welcome,
the
everybody.
American
Come in,
people.
come in. What do you think?
This is an
of
issue
Pam
of great
Bondi?
concern for Congress as well as the consumers. At the behest of networks of non-governmental organizations and anti-growth activists, Democratic-controlled states and cities are enacting laws and pursuing coordinated lawsuits that would impose retroactive liability on energy producers for past global emissions based on speculative future climate change harms. The proponents of these plans call them climate superfund laws, but in reality, that is simply window dressing for taxes and fees imposed on consumers and businesses that don't even have a presence in these states or communities. But if you look at the billions of dollars they hope to gain from these efforts, the real goal here is to increase their already mismanaged state budgets by imposing fees on consumers and businesses in energy-producing states such as the state of Wyoming. I would describe this as the tobacco litigation on steroids. Vermont has enacted such a law, and another has recently gone into effect in New York. Similar laws are under consideration in a number of other states. Clearly, this problem is spreading. Would you agree that Congress has not authorized states to impose retroactive liability against energy producers and lawful carbon emissions?
Yes.
And would you also agree that protecting consumers is a core part of the DOJ's mission?
Absolutely.
Would you further agree that combating state policies that seek to hide and shift the true cost of programs like these onto consumers fits within your mission?
This is Harriet
Yes.
Hageman.
So, Attorney General Bondi, fossil fuels are the
great name.
foundation of the U.S. economy, and the recent winter storms underscored that gas, coal, and oil remain essential to grid reliability and heating our homes. Can you confirm that the DOJ is fully committed to using all available legal tools to stop these state and local level attacks on domestic energy production?
Congresswoman, we fentanyl in 47 million fentanyl pills. That affects every single
Daily Mail exclusive interview with Vice President J.D. Vance titled J.D. Vance refuses to apologize to Alex Preddy's family after spreading ICE assassin claim. One more. My last submission request is a New York Times article titled FBI agent who tried to investigate ICE officer in shooting resigns.
Without objection.
Thank you.
The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, I think you and pretty much everybody else here and throughout the country believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison. And yet, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas, which she, as a sex offender, would normally be ineligible for. At this new facility, as the ranking member talked about, and by the way, it's nicknamed Club Fed, we've heard reports that she's been afforded special privileges: puppy time, private workouts, personal mail, secretarial services. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve special treatment and and privileges in prison? Yes or no?
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And
Thank you.
let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well, I
did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or
She
no.
was not
finish.
transferred to a lower
Mr. Chairman,
level.
please
Wow.
stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules. One rule
And
she needs to
I'm
understand
glad
here.
that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things.
When
But
we're
I
not
want you
agreeing,
to
we move
know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency from Donald Trump.
Oh, boy.
It's just crazy to consider that she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration.
I mean, that's the only playing chip she's got.
But that begs the question, who ordered her
Hey, everybody.
to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off?
A lot
on
of
the
people are talking about the Epstein Files being a distraction. Let's find out from the testimony.
special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why, but you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, you should be talking about Irina Zarutska.
I have a couple
who
of
died
other
on a
questions.
subway.
Right, and I absolutely...
You don't talk about that.
I have been talking about it and actually helping with these issues. But we're going to move back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify. That's what the whole point of this endeavor is. So of course we're moving back to you. It is all about you. So as we've heard, she
Good point.
took the fifth in response
point
to
about
every
Watergate.
single question in that committee hearing.
She is
And
Italian.
her lawyer dangled the offer of
Not
clemency.
people.
Should Donald Trump pardon or commute her
Aren't they
sentence?
both, though?
Should she be released from prison?
Aren't they both
Yes or no?
cults?
You said you
think
hope she
politics
dies
is a
there, so
cult
I'm
in
hoping the
general,
answer
right?
is no.
I
That's my
already
opinion.
answered that question.
Good. I'm very glad. I really like this bipartisan agreement about
Well, when
what
it
should
agrees
happen.
with you, but you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You don't want to talk about
I talk about her
murdered
all
by
the
a
time,
violent crime
but I
offender
am not
in
here
your
to
jurisdiction.
testify before Congress. You are. That is your job today.
You are
That's what you're getting paid for.
obsessed with attack.
So I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly. That's why you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You couldn't properly identify her relative.
I absolutely
This lady.
have been, and her family, by the way, appreciates all of the condolences, all of the help, everything that our law enforcement in North
condolences don't fix
Carolina
the problem.
has been doing
You know
to
what I'm
help her
saying?
family. Her
I know, this
family feels well treated. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized.
I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article by former Attorney General William P. Barr entitled, "Why Pam Bondi Didn't Publish All the Epstein Files in 30 Days." The answer is simple. It was not possible.
Oh, you mean Bill Barr, the one who said there was nothing on any of the video for him to see, yet we still see one orange figure in the background? Okay.
Well said. Without objection.
Bring him in. Bring him in.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam,
I'm sorry. May I respond 20 seconds to something that Congresswoman Ross said?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. She also opposed a sex offender registry as head of North Carolina ACLU. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Attorney General. And I'd like to pick up where you left
Wow.
off a moment ago, because we convene here today as a committee for the stated purpose of conducting oversight of the Department of Justice. And so it's critical for us to focus first on the mission of the department and assess your success in discharging it. So the mission of the department is to enforce federal law, defend the rule of law, and protect the American people from violent crime, terrorism, drug trafficking, fraud, and exploitation, to promote public safety. And what we have heard today unequivocally is that President Trump's Department of Justice, under your leadership, Attorney General Bondi, is doing exactly that. Just a moment ago, you shared with us some incredible statistics that the United States, under your leadership, has achieved the lowest murder rate
There's no way
in
she wrote this.
125 years. That in the first year of this administration, murder
I'd
is
like
down.
to see some of these representatives, no matter what side it's on, be a little bit more prepared with their text, you know, with whatever they're reading off of. Just look at it a little bit.
21%.
Practice in
Robbery
the
is
mirror.
down 23%, carjacking down 43%, and gun assault down 22%. That is what public safety looks like. Under your leadership and that of President Trump, you've located more than 6,000 child victims of trafficking and exploitation, arrested 1,700 child predators, and apprehended more than 300 human traffickers.
That's not bad.
Significant increases. And those aren't just statistics. Those are precious lives that your department and the men and women of federal law enforcement have saved. Madam Attorney General, you've mentioned a couple of specific criminal trends during this hearing that I'd like to discuss with you further, because one of our important roles in Congress is making sure that our laws and our law enforcement stay ahead of predators as technology evolves. I lead legislation in the House, along with bipartisan co-sponsors on this committee, to make sextortion a clearly defined criminal offense. We actually passed that out of the House of Representatives. We have a bill to promote Operation Renewed Hope to help rescue more child victims, and the Defiance Act to provide legal recourse to victims of deepfake AI intimate images. I would love to hear your perspective and what you are seeing related to these technology-based criminal trends, sextortion and AI deepfakes. What are you seeing at the Department of Justice, and why do you believe that efforts to combat these types of crimes are important?
So the gentle lady from Florida right there, she is a Republican. You're going to be able to tell the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats by the way they frame their questions, by the way they talk to Attorney General Bondi. You know, I think they should have a bit of mutual respect for each other that seems to be lacking, you know?
And thank you for supporting that, Congresswoman. I think that was a bipartisan effort, actually. I think many of you on both sides of the aisle supported that. Thank you for that. You know, as a career prosecutor, it's horrible seeing that and seeing that young women and often young boys have been exploited with sextortion. And I see, thank you, both sides of the aisle nodding on that. It's horrific. The suicide rates go up, and that's why we have to do everything in our power to protect not only young girls, adult women, boys and men from sextortion, because it is happening, and we're doing everything in our power, thanks to your legislation, all of you, to stop that.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about some of the Department of Justice programs like Project Safe Childhood and the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Forces, partnerships that bring together federal, state, and local law enforcement. Sometimes the work between those law enforcement groups together really creates some incredibly powerful outcomes and some great success stories. I know you, as Florida's Attorney General, had a tremendous amount of leadership in our state trying to make sure we were taking care of children, also the elderly, protecting them from fraud, ending drug trafficking. Tell us a little bit about some of those departments within DOJ.
Yeah, when you talked about Project Safe Neighborhoods, we've done a lot of that in Florida when I was state AG, and actually back when I was a state prosecutor prior to being Attorney General. That is so important. I feel like what we've been doing in D.C.
Check
too,
the temperature
with
in
the
the
Take
chat.
Back DC.
Put a 1 in the chat if you support Pam Bondi. Put a 2 in the chat if you don't. I want everybody here. I want everybody from all sides here. I want to hear your voice now. Hit that like button.
Make D.C. safe again is similar to that. Going into the neighborhoods, working with the community.
We do a little differently around here. We're not so
law enforcement officers out there playing basketball with kids who live in the neighborhood. It's pretty remarkable what we've seen firsthand. Citizens in Memphis saying that they appreciate, they can walk outdoors now and they feel safe. People coming up thanking law enforcement and working hand in hand with them.
All right, we got a good mix in here. I like that. Awesome.
all of these programs and working jointly with both sides of the aisle to keep our
thank you.
families safe.
Thank you for that, Madam Attorney General. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Wah.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
I'd like to introduce for the record a letter.
Talk to you never.
A letter to Director Gabbard from Mr. Warner and
That kind of thing you could just hide altogether. We
Mr.
don't put up with
Himes,
that crap.
and a letter of response from her to them about who invited her to Atlanta, and a copy of the search warrant.
Okay, now this
and
is
I'd also like to just make-
Representative Steve Cohen from Tennessee, a Democrat from the 9th District, Memphis, Munford, and Covington. That's his areas. Those are his tables, right? If it's a restaurant.
For the record, the reason people in Memphis weren't going out was because the ice was on the
Pam
ground,
Bondi.
and we were afraid we'd fall. But other than that, we go out all the time.
People in Memphis do not say that.
Gentlemen, without objection, there's unanimous consent. The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Liar,
Attorney General
liar, her
Bondi,
lips are moving.
according to your department, a child is sexually abused in the United States every 9 minutes. And the vast majority of
all kinds of
survivors
opinions
never
in the
get
chat.
justice.
We love
And
it.
that's one of the reasons why I think the Epstein case has resonated
my
so
goodness.
deeply.
This is, whoa. Oh, Karen. This is Representative Becca Balint, a Democrat from Vermont at large. What does that mean? Burlington, Montpelier, and Rutland.
With so many Americans.
I
And
prefer
the other
Stowe.
reason I think is because it has revealed a two-tiered system of justice. And the powerful are protected and the survivors rarely get any accountability. And the Epstein Files contain evidence of a multi-decade international criminal conspiracy involving some of the wealthiest and the most powerful people in the world. There's evidence of financial crimes, political corruption, sex trafficking, and of course, horrible sexual abuse. And I want to remind everybody, this isn't a game. These are real people, people who have suffered.
This is the Justice Department Oversight Committee.
With us today, and they deserve answers, and they deserve accountability. And I'm here to try to get some for them.
Thank you
Now,
so much.
I've seen some of the unredacted Epstein files. And obviously, as you know, President Trump's name is all over them.
Distraction in
But
progress.
so are the names of
Let's keep
other
following up on the
senior
board.
Trump officials. Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Commerce, John Phelan,
Thank you so
Secretary
much
of the
for the
Navy,
super sticker.
and Stephen Feinberg, the
Much
Deputy Secretary
appreciated.
of
Thank
Defense.
you. Welcome.
These men were appointed by President Trump to senior positions in his administration. All of them have clear and confirmed ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Attorney General Bondi, yes or no, has the Justice Department asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Epstein?
Excuse me. Secretary Lutnick has addressed those ties himself.
I'm asking you, has the Justice Department specifically asked Secretary Lutnick about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
He has addressed those ties himself.
Good to
Has
have
the
you.
DOJ asked Secretary Phelan about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know whether he has addressed those or not.
Has the Deputy Secretary
Pray this a little
Feinberg
better.
talked to the Department of Justice about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein? Yes or no? Has the Department of Justice talked to Deputy Secretary Feinberg about his ties to Jeffrey Epstein, which are clearly spelled out in the files? It's a very simple question. It's not a trick question. I'm just asking you.
Yeah, I'm stunned that you want to continue talking about.
Oh my gosh.
Epstein
Okay, I'm
instead of a Border
reclaiming my
Patrol
time. I'm
agent
asking
murdered.
you not a trick question, a simple
Done.
Oh,
question.
boy.
Okay, so what is clear is we have evidence.
Do you know
that
who Chris Malin is?
We have evidence that 3 senior officials within the Trump administration have ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Is that right, Alex?
And what I
What
can
does ties
conclude,
mean?
They're
I can
weirdly rich in
conclude
Vermont.
from what you
Oh,
are
let's hear it.
saying that you have not talked to them.
What does ties mean?
I
Can you
think
Tommy says Bondi
Americans
is low
would be
IQ.
shocked to learn that you are not interested in talking with these officials who have ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
What does
Across
ties
the
mean?
world,
Can you
yeah.
define that?
across the world,
Can you
prominent
define
men
ties?
The Tom
who've been
Core aesthetic
exposed
welcome.
in the files have resigned their jobs in disgrace. And that's
Time
a good
traveler
first
Bill
start.
Clinton's coming
and
up.
that same
He's coming up.
standard,
Not saying the word
this
Chris
same
Malin.
standard should
check the
apply
date again.
here. And Americans want accountability.
Who is Chris Malin?
Was
the president
Bill Clinton will be testifying Friday the 27th. He wants it to be public. I'm going to be covering
ask
that.
questions. It is not your time. I'm reclaiming my time, Mr. Chair.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Vermont.
Was the president aware of Secretary Lutnick's ties to Epstein when he chose him to lead the Department of Commerce?
Oof. That's a tough
Was
question.
he aware?
Chris Malin was a Border Patrol agent.
Okay, so I'm going to conclude that the president, in fact, did know about his ties because he was the next door neighbor.
Shame on you.
Oh, for goodness sakes. This is pathetic. This is pathetic, Mr. Chair. I am not asking trick questions here. The American people have a right to know the answers to this.
Oh, shit.
These are senior officials in the Trump administration.
Oh, damn.
This is not a game, Secretary.
Woof.
I'm Attorney General.
My apologies, I couldn't tell.
Ooh. Oh.
By 2008, we knew that Epstein was a convicted sexual abuser. And we now know that Lutnick went to Epstein's Island in 2012.
Billy says
How was
enough
that
of this
not a
crap.
deal breaker for the president? And why aren't
We
you
gotta look at
asking
it. We gotta see the
questions
truth.
of the Commerce Secretary about what he saw when he was at the island, which he lied about not ever going to? Why are you not asking these questions? And I see that my time is almost expired, so I will say this. Do the right thing, Attorney General. Meet with the survivors. They have been asking for a year. Meet with the survivors. Do the right thing. I yield back.
Oh,
Gentleman
boy.
yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for 5 minutes.
May I have 20 seconds of his time?
So that'd be up to the gentleman, but.
Absolutely, Madam.
Thank you. Thank you. I was curious if you, Congresswoman, asked Bill Clinton that. Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland anything about Epstein, not once when he was.
Weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to reflect that, you know, with this anti-Semitic culture right now, she voted against a resolution condemning.
Oh,
is
Jewish.
I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust? Really?
The committee will be in order.
Talk to Jared Wise about anti-Semitism.
The ranking member
Oh, boy.
knows that.
Can I get like 30 seconds back, you know?
Yeah, I've
He's
been
dropping the mic
the
and
whole
walking off.
committee knows
She
I've been
walked
very
out.
busy making sure everyone gets their 5 minutes in the
Attorney
same.
General, I'm going to talk about
The
sanctuary
gentle
cities
lady
for a
from
second,
Vermont has
which
left the building.
limit
Whoa.
the federal government's ability to enforce immigration law.
I've never seen that.
They're kind of a new thing that Democrat jurisdictions are doing. They're in violation of federal law. During President Trump's first term, he rightly
All right, this is
targeted
Representative
sanctuary-
Russell Fry from South Carolina, a Republican. His areas are Myrtle Beach, Florence, and Georgetown.
jurisdictions to try to force them to cooperate with federal immigration law. Federal immigration law, mind you, that was
That's
voted
not
on
the only
in
one we
1996
have, so
most
stay with
recently,
me. We're going to see a lot
in
of
a bipartisan
testimony.
Congress,
A rage quit.
signed by a Democrat president. But they are in violation of that law. These states and jurisdictions feel entitled to certain grants, of course. Y'all are combating that. Do sanctuary policies limit the federal government's ability to accurately estimate how many criminal illegals are in the country?
Ex-Robert says women.
Thank you. This means that the number of illegals could be higher, probably higher. Does this hurt the federal government's ability to carry out immigration laws designed by Congress?
Yes, Congressman.
In your opinion, do you believe that the Biden-Harris administration and
I'm not
Democrats'
saying that comment.
pro-sanctuary policies make our communities safer and for the American taxpayer? Do sanctuary policies make our communities safer?
No, Congressman.
I want to do a brief video to highlight sanctuary proceedings.
They're showing a video from what is going on in some of these sanctuary cities.
So what's strange to me, if you look at this board behind me, in New York, there are 7,000 criminal legal aliens since January 20th of last year that have been released into the public. Because New York is
Jonathan
not
says
honoring
Bondi is getting
detainers
destroyed.
requested by ICE.
And Rob says, good job,
California,
Pam. So we have
similarly,
both
has
sides,
released
both opinions.
4,500
We love
criminal
that.
illegal aliens.
Welcome.
There are 33,000 under detainer in California alone. And of the people released, I think it's remarkable that those released in New York, 29 homicides, 2,500 assaults, almost 200 burglaries. These are people that are released into our community by these states that refuse to cooperate. Last August, Michael Jordan Castellano Fonseca, a criminal illegal alien with ties to Trenday
And just to make a point about
shot 2 people in front of 5
this
children.
chat right here,
in the
there are
sanctuary.
different people in here with different opinions, and everybody could be in here together and agree to disagree. And that's what I think is great about what we're creating here in this community. Thank you so much.
State of Colorado. DHS lodged a detainer on him. He's awaiting trial, but the question is whether Colorado's sanctuary policies will prevent him from being removed from the country. Yes or no? Do you think that sanctuary jurisdictions, if they cooperated with ICE, those illegals in custody could be transferred to ICE properly instead of being held in taxpayer-funded jails and then released into our community?
Yes, Congressman.
Wouldn't it be more efficient and safer then if Democrats simply cooperated with the federal government, these sanctuary jurisdictions cooperated with the federal government and honored ICE detainers? And why? Why do you think?
Of course, because so many criminals are running to sanctuary jurisdictions. Many of your colleagues across the aisle who we've seen speaking today about Epstein don't want to talk about the illegal criminals in their own jurisdiction for that reason. And yes, we need to do everything we can to work together to make America safer, and they're not doing that.
This is not a deflecting. People want to feel safe in their communities. Nobody wants a criminal illegal alien released into the street. I think that the thing that maybe the American people don't quite understand is
thank you very
that
much.
when you do not honor a detainer,
Just condition
as we've
them.
seen,
Here you
an
go.
illegal is released into the public, and now it's up to ICE to maybe apprehend them, rather than behind the courtroom
Show logo.
passing them off from one law enforcement to the next. Is that
Well
true?
placed.
Absolutely.
What do you think what is the Department of Justice doing right now
Better to hear you with.
combat sanctuary policies in our country?
We're doing everything in our power, obviously, to combat that. Donald Trump is doing everything he can because we are going to make America safe. We are going to get illegal criminal aliens out of this country. We're going to get the gangs out, TDA, MS-13, all of the gangs in this country. We're going to get the drug dealers out and the drugs, and that's what we've been fighting to do. And I wish we could do it on a bipartisan basis, but they just can't do it.
And the decrease in numbers speak for themselves. Thank you for your work.
Gentleman's time
Mr.
is
Chairman, we have some UCs, if that's okay.
All right, we're going to go a little bit backwards in the story today. We're going to check this a little earlier. I'm sure everybody's familiar with a gentleman by the name of Ted Lieu, and this is always interesting between them.
I'll yield back. You may answer the question.
Thank you. Yes, I spent 4 days myself in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. What I will say about some of these sanctuary cities, some of these democratic cities, law enforcement, they quietly want to work with us. I've spoken to law enforcement in multiple cities who want to work with us. And yes, we're going to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe, whether or not these Democrat-controlled sanctuary cities do or don't.
And damn it, that's what really matters. I yield back.
Mr. Chair, I have a UC.
Ms. Crockett from Texas is recognized for UC.
Thank you so much. Donald Trump's approval rating implodes on his strongest issue. This is from Newsweek today. It says 40% of people approve of Trump's handling of immigration and border security, while 60% disapprove.
Without objection.
UC is a unanimous consent, by the way, if anybody's wondering what a UC is, what she just said. What
Admitted.
he said.
Now I recognize the gentleman
20.
from California, Mr. Lieu.
Mr. Lieu, here we go. Strap in, kids.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. I'm going to show you 2 photos.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you 2 photos of
There's the
former
setup.
Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. Under the law Congress passed, you were allowed to redact photos.
Some
to
of the
protect
photos
victims
of
Epstein's
Andrew being
sex
shown.
trafficking operation.
He's gross.
You redacted the photos of this victim's face.
F Andrew. F Andrew. I'm glad he got his thing taken away. F that guy.
because you were following the
He should be in
congressional
prison.
law. Is that correct?
I'm sorry that we redacted the victim's
Because you were
name?
following the congressional law, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have now established that please put the photos back up, that we are looking at a sex trafficking victim. Under the Federal Victims Trafficking Protection Act, not only is Jeffrey Epstein guilty, but anyone who patronizes Epstein's sex operation is also guilty of a crime. That's why I find it absolutely despicable that you sought to protect Epstein's clients, like former Prince Andrew.
Tone it down a little
Last
bit.
July, you closed the case on Epstein's abusers.
What's up, Matt?
July 2025 memo from your Department of Justice stated, quote, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." These two photos, please put the photos back up. These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland these questions when he was Attorney General and set before
I agree with you.
you twice.
I'm reclaiming my time.
Never
I agree with
mentioned
you. I agree with you. During
Were
the
you not here
during the Biden administration, I called for people looking at Epstein files. Merrick Garland dropped the ball, as did Attorney General Bill Barr, as did Alex Acosta, a whole string of failures. But you are in charge. You have the power to change things, to hold these men accountable, and you're doing the opposite. You're protecting them. So I want to move on to another man.
Can I answer
Donald
that,
Trump.
though?
I want to move on to another
Can I answer
question.
your question about protecting
You
Prince
answered the
Andrew?
question.
You're saying no. I love this.
I want to discuss another man, Donald Trump, who is all over the Epstein files, like former Prince. Here's a video.
Here's the video. We were in Palm Beach at a party.
Like
Everybody
former
was
Prince
at a
Andrew,
party.
Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files
I'm reclaiming my time.
be
I got your
released.
answer. You said there's no
President
evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman,
that
please stop the
he
clock. My time.
sign
Stop the clock.
the legislation. This is
I'd like to reclaim my time.
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay.
Woo!
I'm going to put up
Told you.
another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center, because I believe you just lied under oath. There is
boy.
ample evidence in the
Wow.
Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape.
Wow.
You said there's no evidence of a crime. I'm showing you. Here is
He just said to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, I believe you just lied under oath. What? Oh my goodness.
a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to
They were in a
Jeffrey on his cell
limo.
phone.
He didn't drive. Just clearing that up.
He was so angry, he was going to stop a limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown
Like and
off.
subscribe,
Officers
guys.
at the scene said that could not have
What
been
was that?
suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately.
Well, they're interrupting each other. I
Epstein
think.
should rot in hell. So should the men who patronized his operation. And as we say here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims.
Tell him, Ted.
And you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The gentleman has
Wow.
expired.
Calling for her resignation.
May I respond?
Yeah, I don't know how you respond. No one can.
I did not
can
ask a
respond,
question,
but
Ms.
he
Hager.
doesn't
You're
want
allowed
to talk
to.
about
I did
the
not ask a
horrific
question.
crime in California. He does not want to talk about
I did not ask a
crime
question.
in his
She
state.
can't just
Madam Attorney
ad-lib
General.
stuff. I did not ask a question.
Committee will be in order. The gentleman has yielded back his time. I think our next witness will be
This
more
is
than
crazy
happy
today.
to let the Attorney General
Madam
respond.
Attorney General, would you like to?
Gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 5 minutes.
You have a few minutes to respond.
Thank you, Congressman. This is what Congressman Liu didn't want to talk about. He didn't want to talk about all the crime that is happening in his state.
California.
California refuses to honor detainees.
By the
because
way,
of
I am broadcasting live from Los Angeles, so California's got some problems that need to be addressed.
its dangerous sanctuary city policies. The refusal means California has released 4,561 criminal illegal aliens onto its street. The crimes of these aliens include 31 homicides, 661 assaults, 574 burglaries, 184 robberies, 1,489 dangerous drug offenses, 379 weapons offenses, and 234 sexual predator offenses. That's why they are deflecting. That's why they're trying to talk about the Epstein Files. That's currently happening in his home state.
Attorney General, thank you for being here, and I wanted to make sure you had time to respond. I'm going to change gears a little bit. In October, when you were testifying before the Senate, I know you and my friend Senator Katie Britt discussed concerns of infiltration of the illegal Chinese vapes into our country. As a father of three, obviously, I'm worried a little bit about this, and I believe that many parents in the country share our similar concerns. Can you provide an update on DOJ's work in this space over the past few months?
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. We're talking about the vapes. And this should be an issue where both sides of the aisle can work together on. Parents need to understand, children need to understand that so many of these are being manufactured in China, sent to our country, and have the potential to be laced with lethal drugs.
Yeah, they do tend to drift a little bit. We're going to head back over to another bit about the Epstein Files.
Am I correct that under your leadership, the Department of Justice has prosecuted cases of non-citizen voting? So it's false, as some of my Democratic colleagues have claimed, that it doesn't happen.
Yes.
I ask that today because we're voting on the Save America Act today to enact common sense policies to ensure only American citizens vote in American elections and enact federal voter ID laws. But it's true, for example, that in just this month, a federal grand jury in Newark indicted two men with illegally voting in federal election and making false statements. Mohammed Mazammel and Mohammed Shakil were non-citizens at the time they registered to vote. This happens, it happens regularly, and you're prosecuting those crimes, correct?
This is Chip Roy from Texas.
But does that prosecution of those criminals overturn their previously cast votes?
That's all pending.
But it does not overturn votes that they've cast, right? So passing the Save America Act would help deal with that problem.
Yes, Congressman.
Second question. As Attorney General, you're in charge of the Executive Office of Immigration Review, correct?
Yes, Congressman.
The Biden-Mayorkas regime caused the immigration court case backlog to explode,
Some
correct?
say Pam should resign in the chat. Some say Pam is coming on amazing. I love to have the different opinions. Thank you so much, guys. Keep them coming.
Explode.
Does that sound about right that in September of 2020, 4 months before President Biden took office,
the
there was a
like
backlog
button.
of 1.5 million cases, but by the
If you'd like to be able to interact with, so many channels are an echo chamber. You can interact with people from both sides here. Hit that like button.
time President Biden left office, the backlog reached nearly 4.2 million cases?
It sounds about right, but I don't have the exact numbers.
It would be accurate to say that most individuals who file for asylum have a meritless or fraudulent claim?
Oops.
Most. I don't have the numbers.
Oh, so does it sound correct that of the asylum cases adjudicated in FY 2023 under the Biden regime, that only 14% resulted in an asylum grant and only 12% in fiscal year 2024? Does that sound correct?
It sounds correct. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers.
Could you get that information to us to
Yes,
verify that
I'll
data?
get all that information to you.
Under the Trump administration, immigration judges complete an average of 65,000 cases per month, the highest average completion rate in at least a decade. Does that sound correct?
That sounds correct.
Ms. Bondi, how many new cases under EOIR received in fiscal year 2025 have you all had? And of those, what percentage have been granted asylum? Do you know?
I can try to get you those numbers. I thought I had those.
That'd be great, because my question is whether President Trump's decision to pause asylum in the wake of the shooting of a National Guardsman by an Afghani here in Washington, D.C., in the nation's capital, helped to stop the backlog in your office. Does that sound correct?
Yes, Congressman.
My point being that the leadership of this administration is ending the backlog, reducing the backlog, making sure that we don't have fraudulent asylum claims clogging it, and keeping Americans safe. Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman.
So a couple other quick questions on another important topic that has been raised by colleagues on
Getting
both
the
sides
beating
of
in
the aisle
there.
with respect to the Epstein case. A few questions.
Okay, here we go.
One,
Epstein
Jeffrey Epstein
time.
was charged in July 2019 for sex trafficking under the Trump administration in his first term. Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman.
And that Ghislaine Maxwell was charged in 2020 also under the Trump administration, correct?
Yes, Congressman.
So it is safe to say that the administration led on that issue and that there
A lot
was
of
silence
pressure.
in the previous administration. Is that correct?
Yes, Congressman. Almost complete silence from everyone who's been trying to still talk about Epstein. They didn't say a word under the Biden administration. Nothing.
And I want to make one other point and then another question, though, that is important. I want to make one observation, and that is that we've heard the information today, which is troubling, that Jane Doe's, that victims' information was made public and was unredacted in the files that were released on Friday. So my question is, some of us had argued when we were dealing with the discharge petition in Congress that when Congress inserted itself into the process, that we needed to be very careful to ensure that we were protecting victims. So a question that is both, I just want to make that clear that some of us were fighting for that here and we didn't get a chance to amend it or change it. So that was concerning. But a question a little more pointed, I have to say, is why, though, were the victims' names released that shouldn't have been? That there were names in the files that these Jane Doe's,
Oh, we got more heat coming. It's not over yet.
when there were some
There's a lot.
accusers whose names were redacted. That's
Stay with
question
us.
one.
Hit the like button.
And question
Thank you.
two
How y'all
was
doing
that
today?
Ghislaine Maxwell was put in jail for trafficking minors. Rightly so, and you properly said here at this table, you hope she dies in jail. Well, I want to know, will anyone besides her or Epstein, which I congratulate President Trump's previous administration and this Department of Justice for continuing all of that, but that they were indicted, but will anyone else be indicted and prosecuted under this, given the information that's in front of us? So 2 questions.
Thank you for letting me answer that. They didn't want to hear my answer on the other side. Yes, given the
Microbe Joe
tight
says this is
time
what a
frame
lack
of
of
30
objective
days, I
truth
believe we
leads
got everything
to.
released within a little over 60 days. I'm talking as fast as I can. My time is up. We did the best we could immediately.
Some people saying she's doing a great job in the chat. Some people saying she should resign. I love it. It's
Everyone's
awesome
been coming
for
to view
everybody
the
to be able to
documents.
talk.
If someone's name should not have been redacted, we're releasing it. If someone's name was redacted, we said right away, was not redacted and should have been, meaning a victim. We went back and redacted it. We're doing everything we can based on the
she's taking a beating
tight
in here
time frame and
today.
over 3 million pages
It's not over.
that we released, that Donald Trump signed for pure transparency.
You know that
Second,
Indian lady congressman? We got her coming up. And Nadler, Jerry Nadler. They're going to really dig in. So hangs on. We're going to get into it.
what was your second question?
About whether another individual will be indicted
Absolutely.
and
Thank you for
prosecuted.
asking that. And they never wanted to hear the answer to that. We have pending investigations in our office.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Unanimous consent request from the gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. I have several UCs
Like
as
to proceed?
receipts.
Okay.
I'd like
He
to.
also has some unanimous consents, but we're going to jump over here because I want to see some heat. All right. I think everybody in here wants to see some heat. So we're going to get to it right about now.
And if I could add one thing to that, we are always recruiting and looking for judges. So please reach out to our office for these judges who are handling all these very important matters. We've even added some JAG officers as immigration judges.
Thank you.
And so we're continuing to do that, but we're always seeking
JAG is a
qualified
Judge Advocate
lawyers as
General
well to be part
in
of
the
that.
movie.
Thank you for highlighting that, Congressman.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, here we
Good
go.
morning, Attorney General Bondi, right here.
Uh-oh.
We are joined in this room by some of the thousands of survivors from Jeffrey Epstein's horrific sex trafficking ring. They have
So
shown
this is where
such
we check in with the survivors. They have them in the room.
incredible courage in speaking out, in demanding accountability to bring the predators and pedophiles to justice.
Amen
The
to that.
Epstein
I
Files
think we can all
Transparency
agree on
Act
that one.
required your Department of Justice to disclose the perpetrators connected with Epstein's criminal activities and to redact the information of survivors to protect their identities. Let me show you what actually happened.
This
First,
is Representative Pramila Jayapal from Washington, 7th District, Seattle, Shoreline, and Vashon.
Violation of the law, your department has shown a pattern of redacting the names of powerful predators. Here behind me is one example of an email from Epstein to a man whose name was redacted. The email reads, quote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." Only after members of Congress demanded that we see the unredacted files did the world learn the name of this individual, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, the chairman and CEO of a company that had financial ties to President Trump's business and personal ties to Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon. Second, the survivors were not similarly protected, also in violation of the law. Here is another email titled Epstein Victim List. We have blurred the names of the survivors for their protection, but your Department of Justice initially released this list of 32 survivors' names with only one name redacted, along with numerous files that disclose not only the names, the emails, and the addresses of survivors, but also nude photographs and even the identities of Jane Does who had been protected for decades until your department released their names. Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein. In their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades." To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein.
And we're going to watch that opening
Will
statement
you
in a
turn to
minute.
them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein Files and their information?
Uh-oh.
Congresswoman, you sat before, Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi.
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a specific question that I would like you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer. So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I am reclaiming my time, and when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady has
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just
Chairman,
say this.
I'll direct it to
What a
you.
massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness is
I'm not going to get
interrupted.
in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing theatrics.
and let me have my
The
time.
gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be.
Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein Files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only to then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd Blanche, met alone with Elaine Maxwell and transferred her to a minimum security prison. And now you continue the cover-up. And I wish that you would turn around to the survivors who are standing right behind you and on a human level,
Chairman, the chair now recognizes the chair.
And what you have done.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Theatrics.
We appreciate that. We appreciate the thought. And I would argue the central issue in the last election, the presidential election, was securing the border. The gentleman from Arizona who knows something about securing the border is up for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. In 2022, Lafarge, which is a French cement company, pled guilty in U.S. federal court to participating in a criminal conspiracy with ISIS. That conspiracy contributed to the deaths of U.S. service members fighting in Syria during Operation Inherent Resolve. As part of the plea agreement, Lafarge was required to pay more than $775 million to DOJ's Asset Forfeiture Fund. In February 2025, my colleagues and I sent you a letter urging the department to review the petitions for remission submitted by the families of those fallen service members, including several of my constituents. The previous administration ignored these victims and our requests and left their petitions unresolved. My question for you on this particular issue is if you're willing to work to ensure those families that their petitions will be reviewed and brought to a resolution.
Congressman, we are aware of that, and we're committed to doing everything we can to support the victims and work with you. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, appreciate your answer. And now let's go to something that is also pressing that I've been working on for years, and this is the FISA Section 702 and Arctic frost. In January 2025, you testified before the U.S. Senate and agreed with Senator Lee that, quote, anytime an American citizen's private communications are intercepted or stored, whether through incidental collection or otherwise, those communications should not be searched without some showing of probable cause, close quote. You still hold that view today, I assume?
Yes.
And during the most recent FISA reauthorization, I offered an amendment to establish a clear warrant requirement for searches of Americans' data while preserving every publicly cited operational exception, including emergencies, defensive queries, cybersecurity threats. And my intent was to ensure the Department of Justice could continue to keep Americans safe while also ending warrantless searches of U.S. persons' data. Are there any additional circumstances or exceptions that you believe must be included to ensure DOJ can continue to operate effectively while still protecting American citizens' data and privacy?
Yeah, Congressman, we are committed to working with Congress to uncover weaponization and other misconduct by Jack Smith, by others, Arctic frost, everything that happened under the past administration. And we are committed to working with you on that. And we are working with Chairman Jordan, with the House Intel, with all of our, my fellow cabinet members on resolving that issue.
That's funny.
Well, thank you. And I'm glad you brought up Arctic frost because...
Okay, so we're going to continue back over to some more coverage right here. So let's listen.
Chairman,
go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. The Biden administration weaponized the Foreign Corruption Practices Act. And on February 10th, President Trump issued an executive order pausing that for a DOJ review. Under Deputy Attorney General Blanche's supervision, a comprehensive review was led, and the department issued new guidelines protecting all Americans and protecting against the weaponization that happened under the Biden administration.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bondi, I went over to the department yesterday for a couple of hours to review some of the unredacted materials. And I am looking forward to your detailed explanation for why you have withheld almost half of the documents, which is required by the bill. Now, obviously, there are 3 million documents, so I didn't get through much. But one thing I didn't see was the client list that you said you had on your desk a year ago. I did, however, find a couple of important documents. an 86-page prosecution memo from the Southern District of New York and a draft indictment from Florida against Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. For reasons that I cannot understand nor are permitted by the bill, they were still redacted, even for members of Congress. So, Ms. Bondi, will you commit right here to immediately providing those two documents in unredacted form to members of Congress? Not a complicated question.
Well, I guess it is for you because you have a law degree and those are privileged.
Okay, they're not privileged, but we will discuss that later. I also found an email that I have right here from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell that was unredacted.
Cougar Town.
And it included notes of statements that Donald Trump made about his prior relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, there is no reason for this to be
Put a 1 in the chat if Pam Bondi is a cougar. Put a 1 in the chat. Thank you. We do the news differently around here.
hidden from the American people. There is no privilege. There is no attorney-client privilege, and I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019?
So will you unredact this? Will you
were
unredact
lead
this?
counsel on that. Privileged.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Privileged.
Privileged, of course. I look forward to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
And let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you stop the clock? This is on your time. It's not on Mr.
If they're not
Even though
privileged,
you used your improper
them,
redaction.
you'll like my answer.
Don't do that in here.
Sorry. When they're not privileged,
Time belongs to the member.
we'll be happy to release them.
Yeah, we'll stop the clock. We'll stop the clock. Time belongs to the member. Go ahead.
Even though you used improper redactions to protect Donald Trump and other predators associated with Jeffrey Epstein, you did the exact opposite thing with the survivors and victims of this scheme. So their identification information was really the only thing required to be redacted, and it was not. And it's clear this was not a mistake. This was not by accident. This was not because you only had 30 days when you really used 75, and that doesn't even include all the hours last March that you were redacting it. But I'll tell you why it's clear it wasn't a mistake. There is an email entitled Epstein Victim List. There are 32 names.
Hit the like
One
button
is
for me,
redacted.
guys.
31 are not. So someone looked at it and decided to redact something. And I will tell you that that is clearly intentional to intimidate these survivors and victims. Now, in an interview last week...
How will you tell me that's intentional?
In an interview last week, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche...
You can't go off script.
...said that any victim that wants to speak with the department has done so, hopefully. Well, thanks to the incredibly brave people sitting here behind you, we can actually ask them if that's true.
Kaylin,
now,
you
would
can
the
always
survivors
catch the
and
replay
victims
from the
who are
beginning.
here please stand up one more time?
We like that. Thank you.
Just by show of hands, how many of you or your loved ones actually have met with the Department of Justice and provided testimony and evidence? None. And of those of you who have not met, which is everyone, how many of you have reached out either individually or through a lawyer or representative to offer to provide testimony and evidence?
Goldman loves to hear his own voice.
And of those of you, all of you who have reached out, how many of you were denied or ignored by the Department of Justice? All of them. And despite the shameful and despicable efforts by Ms. Bondi and her department to intimidate you, how many of you are still willing to speak to the Department of Justice? All of them. Well, Ms. Bondi, it looks like you have some more witnesses to talk to.
Gentleman's time has expired.
And I yield back.
We will go to the good gentleman from North Carolina, Congressman Knott.
May I have a moment, Congressman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, oh, here we go.
Here we go. Here's the photograph. This is why he wanted to repeat everything that had been said previously on Epstein. This is his state, New York. You probably don't even know who this is. Wahid Mohammed from Afghanistan.
Yes, because I'm no longer a prosecutor.
Convicted of assault. Wow, he represents New York. Wow, yet he doesn't care about the illegal aliens convicted of crimes. Assault and homicide. No longer a prosecutor, so he doesn't care about his constituents. Here we go. Arson, El Salvador, Miguel Palacios. Fermin Flores Ramales, Mexico.
Why are they using the victim? It's just,
Let's talk about the 70% of immigrants who are detained without a criminal conviction or arrest.
Stop the clock. Stop the clock. Time belongs.
Okay, so we're going to go back over. Let's look at Jerry Nadler. He is always a ball buster in this thing. So let's listen.
Today, as that has been referred to my office, I can't discuss anything regarding that because it is very active and ongoing.
And you probably can't answer this one either, but I really want to know if
He's coming
Section
up.
702 queries related to that matter involved members of Congress, which we know at some level it did, congressional staff, which we know at some level did. We've heard that journalists or other U.S. persons not suspecting of acting as foreign agents were also caught up in that. Can you answer that question and say whether queries did cover all those groups I just identified?
Jerry Nadler coming up.
It is a very active pending investigation within my office. However, I believe many members of Congress have stated that their phones were part of Arctic frost. We are well aware of that, and we are taking this very seriously, and this is a very active investigation.
This live stream just passed 100,000 views. Thank you so much, guys. Hit that like button for me.
I would keep going and say if any member of the Democrat Party, if any of them, if that had happened to them, we would take that just as serious as we do. And they should be jumping up and down, screaming, supporting you and what you want to do, because this should be a bipartisan issue.
Well, I hope it is a bipartisan issue. I'll just leave with these last couple of questions, which
I don't like
I'm
Jerry
sure
Nadler either, but he brings the heat. He sure does.
fall into the same
And I think we have that
investigation
Crockett
privilege.
lady to
But
open
that's this.
for
How many
Jerry
such
Nadler. So Crockett always opens for Nadler. This is like a freaking festival.
queries were actually conducted overall? This is outside Arctic frost in the prior year by the FBI or other intelligence community. And particularly, we really need to know what were this legal standards applied? Did they use probable cause? Did they use reasonable articulable suspicion? Or did they have no individualized suspicion and just were gathering up information? And that's beyond the investment of 702. It would be very particularly helpful.
And it was extensive. Yes, Congressman. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
I have a UC, Mr. Chairman.
And
A unanimous
the gentleman from
consent,
Texas.
another
I ask
UC.
unanimous consent to enter into the record. El Paso airspace reopened after FAA quickly rescinds 10-day flights restriction. This was published by the Texas Tribune on February 11th, 2026. And it says it was because of an impasse with the DOD over the use of unmanned military aircraft and not triggered by Mexican cartel drones.
Without objection.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I didn't hear back about the second round of questions. I assume that's not happening. I just want to be able to assure the members, certainly on my side, if not both sides.
That's not a point of order.
No, that every member
you had.
will get 5 minutes with the witness. Will there be 5 minutes for each?
Yeah, you get 5 minutes, yeah.
With the witness. Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah, okay. And are you up next? Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example. The Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out.
I am not.
Trump could not contain his fury.
I've been doing this.
Fury that
I've been doing this since Bad Bunny was still in freaking high school.
he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer.
He's
It's
changing
killing
his
our
diaper.
reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order.
Release all the
Lindsey
names,
Halligan,
Francis says.
Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted
Raven
the
says
case
Jerry
in her
is
life,
also
was installed to replace
dependable.
Mr. Siebert.
All right.
And it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which a court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred. And not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand
We're
juries
gonna have Crockett
rejected you
after
and refused to
Smith
indict
here.
her.
They're like Miami
It is
Vice.
practically unheard of for a grand jury to
Crockett and
refuse an
Nadler.
indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports that you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you are going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein Files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
Yes.
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the
ridiculous.
way I asked it.
Chairman
How many have you
Jordan, I'm not
indicted?
going to get in the gutter with these people,
How many
but
have you-
I'm going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
the time
I
belongs.
think it's very
Reclaiming
interesting.
my time.
I think it's very
Reclaiming my
interesting.
time.
You can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about they
reclaiming my time,
indicted.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him twice.
Mr. Chairman, please
They
stop the
sure
clock
did.
and
And
stop
he
the clock and
indicted-
restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The time
Reclaiming my
belongs to
time
the
and
gentleman
you
from
back
New
up,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when you ask the question, the witness gets to answer. You may not like the answer, but she gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like the answer, Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute question.
Restore 45
and
seconds
I
to
am
Mr.
going
Nadler, please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way. And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time and I should get back at least
Wow.
45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I
Not a
said that
few more,
already.
45 seconds.
Okay.
This is getting heated again.
Now, Mr. Nadler, go
All
ahead.
right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files.
Literally.
When you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None
has
of the perpetrators have
expired.
been brought to justice, but enormous resources
Time
have been
of the
dedicated
gentleman
to
has
pursuing Trump's
expired,
enemies.
and
It's
obviously
clear
there
that
was-
under your leadership, the Department of Justice
There
no
was
longer
no
works
question
for the
in
American
there.
people. It works
Order
for
respond
Donald
to.
Trump. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
I think our next questioner, Madam Attorney General, is going to give you time to respond to.
Thank you,
Just if anybody, there's some breaking news right here. I just want to put it out there. Actor James Vanderbeek has passed away at 48. So I just wanted to let everybody know in here. Actor James Vanderbeek has passed away at 48. So our condolences here from the channel go out to him and his family. Wow.
Kinds of things. So we will turn to the gentleman from Texas for 5 minutes.
Ms. Bondi, you go right ahead. I'm over here. The time is yours.
Thank you. First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side. I lived that with you. During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election. Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump? You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it. You know, all they want to do, all the American people need to know this. They are talking about Epstein today. This has been around since the Obama administration. This administration released over 3 million pages of documents, over 3 million, and Donald Trump signed that law to release all of those documents. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. And none of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over, the Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
Committee will be in order.
Mr. Jordan, am I going to get an extra 45 seconds added to my time?
The committee will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. Ms. Bondi, the Attorney General can respond.
Crockett and Bondi, cage match. What do you guys say?
Thank you. The Dow has shattered 50,000 for the first time. This is crazy. They said it couldn't be done in 4 years, yet President Trump has done it in 1 year. National median rents have fallen to a 4-year low, thanks to Donald Trump.
We got Jasmine Crockett coming up.
That's why they want to focus on Epstein and our most transparent president in the nation's history. The murder rate, as I said, has plummeted to a 125-year low, thanks to Donald Trump. For an unprecedented
there you go.
9 straight months, there were 0 illegal border crossings at the southern border. That's what we should be focused on. All the great work that this president has done and will continue to do to keep America safe and to make Americans safe.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi. I agree with you totally. I think you've done a fine job. I think that Democrats, in fact, should be apologizing to the Epstein victims for doing nothing during the 4 years that they were running the government. We did not hear about this, and it took you and President Trump to finally provide transparency and give answers to the American people, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you also for standing up for truth today and for fighting back against the theatrics and the time waste that you will endure over the next hour or two. I want to apologize on behalf of my colleagues on the left. They're not all that bad, but they've got to put on a show, and I'm sorry that you have to go through that.
All right, we got to hear
Can't
Swalwell.
do that now. The DOJ is not going to go do that and ask the judge for an NDO.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good. That
gotta hear
in and of itself
Swalwell,
tells you
then
why
we're gonna
this-
hear Crockett.
how wrong it was. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California.
Great, thank you. Madam Attorney General, you acknowledged earlier to Mr. Johnson that President Trump was mentioned and the release countless times, you said, in the Epstein Files. I just want to play a video, though, for you that I think speaks to the frustration that many of these victims have. Of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name that we have not released anyone's name in the Epstein Files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at
We have
least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible
Hit the like button.
information.
Okay,
you can
so-
characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
leads me-
It's not.
Is it at least 500
Hit
times?
the like button and do consider subscribing to the channel. We do a lot of breaking coverage on a lot of different news.
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
We do it different.
And what's the number?
I don't know the number.
I understand why the victims are frustrated, and the Attorney General acknowledged what Mr. Patel would not acknowledge, that it was way more than 1,000 times. But I want to move, Madam Attorney General, to weaponization of government. And yesterday it was reported that 6 members of Congress had indictments sought against him, and they were not returned by a grand jury. My colleagues have spoken about their frustration of being in subpoenas and having cell phone records combed through. Well, in 2017 and 2018, Adam Schiff and I had our cell phone records and email records combed through, not by you, but a different Department of Justice under the president. It was in retaliation for our role in the Russia interference campaign. An Inspector General report would find this improper and that the predicate for it was absurd. In 2020, after sitting on 2 committees that were a part of the president's first impeachment, an FBI agent leaked my cooperation in a national security case where my campaign was targeted. The president's FBI senior leadership authorized 2 statements to the press that said I was never suspected of wrongdoing and only helped the investigation. But that didn't stop the death threats or my GOP colleagues from referring me to an ethics investigation where Kevin McCarthy's chairman on the ethics committee would find the same thing as the FBI. Our current FBI director would then write a book called Government Gangsters and identify a long list of enemies. About a quarter of them have been either investigated or indicted. He listed me at the very top, along with Adam Schiff, and during that same testimony, refused to recuse himself when asked if he would recuse if any case came across his desk involving me or people on that list. Since that testimony, his department has put me under investigation with Senator Schiff for the nonsense mortgage fraud cases that we've seen. I get it. This is what the president does. I've priced it in. We have a bingo card at home that my kids have made of what will come next. I expected that the president would come after his enemies, but what I want to talk to you next is serious. And I did not expect this would happen, and I'd like your help on it. The president has inspired death threats against me and many sitting up here with me. In June 2025, an individual left 11 voicemails at my district office. On the voicemails, they said, get the message to him. I'm going to hunt him down, that motherfucker, and toss his ass over the Golden Gate Bridge by my fucking self. Donald Trump's Department of Justice in the Northern District of California declined to prosecute. On May 14, 2025, on Twitter, responding to something I posted, an individual said, no, it wasn't Eric, and now I'm going to kill you. The Department of Justice from the Southern District of Texas declined to prosecute. May through December of 2025, we received messages at my office that said, I hope somebody shoots you and your children and your wife in the head.
Very nice.
Pew, pew, motherfucker, pew, pew. I would stay indoors as much as possible, and my children, unfortunately, have to do that. the Department of Justice has not charged this individual and cited that he's a prolific caller and has health conditions, although what we have found in our own investigation and his voicemails is that he has said he will employ others to do this. The president can come after me. It's fine. I'm in the arena. So are these folks. But we never expected that the Department of Justice would not seek to prosecute and investigate those who are making threats against us. And that would include those on that side of the aisle. And I'm just asking for your help to protect life, because life is at risk with the environment we're in right now.
Congressman, I completely agree with you. I know about several of those personally involving you. I believe one has been charged publicly, and there's something I would be happy to talk to you about off camera, but I can assure you that they are very serious. They are being looked into, and I can give you more details on those. None of you should be threatened, ever. None of your children should be threatened. None of your families should be threatened. And I will work with, you can come into my office any day. I will work with all of you on both sides of the aisle if you are ever threatened. And I'll gladly talk to you after this hearing about your cases. But I can tell you some of them are very active.
Appreciate that. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
All right, we're going to go right over here. We have Crockett coming up, all right? But we're going to do Garcia Chewy. He really gets into
We're going
it.
to make America safe. We are going to get illegal criminal aliens out of this country. We're going to get the gangs out, TDA, MS-13, all of the gangs in this country. We're going to get the drug dealers out and the drugs, and that's what we've been fighting to do. And I wish we could do it on a bipartisan basis, but they just can't do it.
And the decrease in numbers speak for themselves. Thank you for your work.
Gentleman's time is...
Mr. Chairman, we have some UCs, if that's okay.
That is okay.
Mr. Cohen.
Thank you. You see on the National Institute of Justice's study on undocumented immigrants having an offender rate lower than U.S.-born citizens. I'd like to enter this in the record from 2024.
Without objection.
And I have several myself, Mr. Chairman. The Guardian, January 26, 2026, why is Trump granting clemency to convicted fraudsters?
Objection.
January 20, 2026, NBC, Trump's pardons forgive financial crimes that came with hundreds of millions of dollars in punishment.
Objection.
Washington Post, December 19, 2025, Trump's pardons wipe out payments to defrauded victims.
Without objection.
And finally, May 30th, 2024, Trump found guilty by Manhattan jury on 34 felony counts of fraud.
Without objection. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Attorney General Bondi, glad you finally made it here after hiding for 4 months from this committee. I understand why you're hiding from us.
Chairman?
You're one of the worst attorney generals in our history and an instrument of Donald Trump's lawless authoritarian agenda, and I'm glad the American people are seeing who you are, how you act, and the lack of good values. You weaponize the Department of Justice to target immigrants, working families, and anyone that Trump deems an enemy of the state, all to protect real powerful criminals, including in your administration. My Democratic colleagues have focused on your cover-up of the Epstein Files and your passion for protecting pedophiles and child traffickers. That alone is grounds for impeachment. But there's so much more to your corrupt tenure as Attorney General. You directed prosecutors to investigate elected officials in welcoming jurisdictions, and you got thrown out of court when you sued Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois. You directed prosecutors to prioritize low-level immigration cases while gutting enforcement against corporate criminals and public corruption. You revived draconian law of 1798, which should be repealed to illegally send people to a torture prison in El Salvador. You fired over 100 immigration judges, including the assistant chief immigration judge in Chicago, without cause, and installed unqualified military judges whom you instructed to deny asylum in violation of the law. You prosecute the president's enemies like Jim Comey and Tish James while giving impunity to federal agents who are murdering and brutalizing and terrorizing constituents, including in Chicagoland, in my neighborhood. I saw it last year firsthand. You and Kash Patel covered up the murder of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in my district by ICE agents. You tried to investigate Renee Good instead of the ICE agent who murdered her, and you tried to cover up the murder of Alex Peretti by CBP agents. You bring fake charges against protesters like Broadview 6 and Marimar Martinez, whom your administration labeled a domestic terrorist.
Relax.
This is the Montessori teacher who lives in my district.
Appreciate it.
While protecting thugs who terrorize us and DHS authority. That's what you do. Protect and enable the criminals who are plundering our society and destroying what's left of democracy and the rule of law.
You can drop that in the chat a couple times. But
Epstein accomplices.
Come on.
Mass DHS thugs. Corporate criminals. Tom Homan, Eric Adams, insurrectionists. The list goes on.
The list goes on.
You talk about fighting crime, but you protect any criminal who helps you and Trump turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state. And after all this, nobody supports you. I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm talking about conservative judges who are condemning the rampant lawlessness at DOJ under your leadership. Your prosecutors are quitting in droves over being forced to prosecute low-level immigration cases, including in Chicagoland. Your MAGA base despises you because you're covering up the Epstein file. How ironic. And even your own boss has repeatedly complained to your staff about you, calling you weak and ineffective. Weak and ineffective. That's what Donald Trump thinks of you already. You will not win, however. Chicagoland rejects you. The American people reject you. Our communities have demonstrated our strength and resilience in the face of cruelty and cowardice. Democrats must impeach and remove lawless officials like you and Kristi Noem and impose accountability for every criminal action. But you can spare yourself more humiliation. Resign now and submit yourself to accountability by the American people. Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record this Wall Street Journal article dated January 12, 2026, entitled, "Trump has complained about Pam Bondi repeatedly to aides." Thank you, and I yield back.
Objection. Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank the chairman.
May I have 20 seconds, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let's hear the opposition research.
Thank you. That's absolutely right, that they're not running for, he's not running for office again because, well, I don't know why you're not running for office
Pam
again.
Bondi cook.
But after the filing
Sandra
deadline,
Jack says hackery.
after the filing deadline, you
Some say
publicly
she's doing a
announced
great
you would
job.
not run when your chief of staff, Patty Garcia, announced and took your seat.
That's a state matter. That isn't a federal matter. You should investigate crimes. You should investigate violations of the law.
The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas.
All right, we're going to jump back over here. All right. I have got all the goods.
And as I said before, to any victims, we ask them to come forward to our office, and we want to work with them. I have never not worked with a victim, and I believe I've actually spoken to several of the victims.
Madam, if I can reclaim my time, I only have a minute.
Me.
If I can reclaim my time. I just think we start out by making sure those redactions are unredacted, those Epstein files, to make sure that the public, according to the law, following the law, that those names in those files are made public. We have to make sure we tell those predators there is no place for them to hide, and if they commit the crime, they're going to fry for it. It starts with showing us the names of the perpetrators in the Epstein files.
Yes, it's called commentary, which makes it fair use. You're more than welcome to go to another channel if you want to watch it directly, but here we do commentary, reactions. The chat gets to interact with the show and the footage, so we do it a little differently here. You can always go start your own show. I appreciate it, though.
On to that?
Sure.
Okay. So if
Crockett
any
is on her
man's name
texting on
was
her phone.
redacted that should not have been, we will, of course, unredact it. If a victim's name was unredacted, please bring it to us and we will redact it.
And don't tell me
We were
what
given
to do.
30 days
There's
to
that.
review and redact and unredact millions of pages of documents. Our
Madam,
error rate is very low,
The
but there are
victims are
always
right
gonna be
behind you. We've
errors
got to convince
on
them
both sides.
that we're doing a
And
good
we're
job
doing everything
of
we can to help
protecting
the
them.
victims.
Wow.
We'll
Thank
do
you,
everything
Mr.
we can.
Chair. I'm out of time.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California, Mr.
Thank
Kiley,
you.
is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Madam Attorney General. I wanted to return to a point that the chairman raised at the beginning of this hearing, which is these jurisdictions that refuse to honor detainer requests from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, often called sanctuary jurisdictions. Now, I know that you are not involved directly in immigration operations per se, but you do deal with the legal issues surrounding these jurisdictions. So let's say we have someone who's here illegally, who has committed a crime that, like the thousands of people you mentioned in California, murderers, sexual predators, drug traffickers. If that individual is in detention in a jurisdiction that has a sanctuary policy where they do not honor ICE detainers versus in any other jurisdiction where they do, how does the nature of apprehending that person, how does the nature of ICE's involvement in that operation differ in those two circumstances?
Well, I believe you've seen that in Minnesota, where people were not cooperating with us. I believe there a lot of local law enforcement did want to cooperate, but we are doing everything in our power to arrest and deport illegal criminal aliens, and that is not going to stop.
Okay, well, let's check out, Jasmine Crockett. This is going to be something.
Who was shot, his parents. He's doing great. He's a miracle. Please continue to pray for him. I know my time is up, but same results I spoke about earlier in Memphis, and we're still working on that with the help of Make Memphis Safe Again.
Well, again, I think it just draws an incredible contrast between what we've seen happening in Minneapolis versus what we've seen happen in D.C., what we saw happen in Memphis, and what I would love to see in some ways, if we could ever get our governor to work with us in North Carolina, to happen in Charlotte. But with that, I yield back. Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Set your notifications because later I'm going to be doing a special on Ghislaine Maxwell. So I hope you will set your notifications, especially if you are subscribed. Make sure you're hitting that like button.
Nice.
Let's get into Miss Crockett.
Thank you. I seek unanimous consent to introduce into the record the research that Representative Kamlager-Dove and I referenced concerning the threat of right-wing domestic terrorism, which the Department of Justice scrubbed from its website in September.
Without objection, the gentlelady from
Thank
Texas
you.
is recognized.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of
This is like the duel of the day.
cases she tried. But typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims.
Crockett, after a couple drinks, anybody? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Crockett, after a couple drinks, anybody? 1 for yes, 2 for no. Let's hear that in the chat. We ask real questions here.
They are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has
I ain't hating on the sisters. I'm Italian. Get the fuck out of here.
backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this
It's
entire
a disgusting thing to say. Stop it. You calm down. Have a sense of humor. Do you not like comedy club? You would fall apart in a comedy club if that's bad.
Committee
You
hearing.
would
They have
have a
been
complete
lied
meltdown.
on.
They need to take you out in a freaking straitjacket. Capiche? Calm down. Have some fun.
The American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was
Bruno,
to end the
point.
weaponization of justice, and
I don't drink, so it's just a question.
second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin.
I like her.
Just like
I like the way she
the
speaks.
case against Tish James was dismissed
like
and the
this
case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president.
I mean, just from the way she talks, you can tell she knows the game.
And his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts.
I want to go back a little bit.
In the written testimony of this witness.
By the way, she is a Democratic representative
this
from
particular
Texas,
witness. She
from
stated
Dallas
that when
Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
there is a lot of evidence in these files.
Oops. There you go.
We know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example.
For sure.
This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, this is a good one. Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Damn.
Yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try Congresswoman Crockett to ask any questions because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted.
Oh.
And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted, so what we talking about? Convicted.
You're not supposed to be talking now, Jasmine. I know it's hard, but you have yielded your time. Okay? Listen. FBI, open up! Okay?
Some of these perpetrators that rape these women that are sitting behind you, you refuse to even acknowledge they are here.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman,
she's
can I have a
walking.
few seconds
You
back
bet,
to make
you
up
bet.
for the yelling?
She's
Thank
walking.
you. General,
Thank
did you have
you,
anything
Congress.
further to say?
She's
Texas,
walking.
convicted of homicide.
Jasmine Crockett is leaving the building. Oh my God.
Cecil Joseph from Dominican Republic. Texas, convicted for kidnapping, rape.
Woo!
Khalid Khan from Afghanistan. That's why they want to talk about Epstein and not what's happening in
She
their
can walk out a
own
little slower.
states.
You know what I mean?
Thank you, General, and thank you for being here. And this has been quite a spectacle to observe today. I think it's sad. I ran for
Okay, so this is Representative Derek Schmidt. He is the former Attorney General. He is from Kansas, the 2nd District, which includes Kansas City, here I come, Topeka, Leavenworth, we all know what's there, and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. Kansas? There's another one? How many are there?
Congress because I thought we had serious problems in this country we wanted to try to fix together. And this performance today, not yours, General, but some of my colleagues, has not shored up my confidence that we are up to the task. You and I served together for 8 years when you were Attorney General of Florida and I in Kansas. You served professionally. I'm glad to be able to serve with you in these new roles, and I'm glad you're there, both generally and today. Part of the reason I ran for Congress is because in my former role, I saw in the real world, in my state, the consequences of failed U.S. immigration and border security policy. And I'll spare you the lengthy recitation, but let me give you the short version. I sit here and think about a fellow who was running, I believe it was drugs for the cartels, and shot a police officer in Oklahoma, drove across the border into my state, kidnapped an old man, and then invaded a house and shot at cops before we ultimately neutralized him. He's in prison now for, I believe, the rest of his life. I'm thinking about a drunk driver who was in our country illegally, never should have been here, and one night killed a young deputy on southern Johnson County, Kansas, who was making a traffic stop on another individual. Drunk driver ran into him, never should have been here, shouldn't have happened. Thinking about a guy who was deported repeatedly, came back and ultimately murdered, I believe it was 4 people in Kansas City, Kansas, and then fled to Missouri and killed a 5th guy. He died in prison. I'm thinking about a guy we prosecuted who wasn't supposed to be in this country, who raped a child in a little rural county up north on the Nebraska border, and we sent him to prison for, I believe, the rest of his life. Thinking about a guy who wasn't supposed to be here at all, who murdered, I think it was his wife or his domestic partner in an act of domestic violence in northwest Kansas. Thinking about another guy who was here and joined up with some folks who were citizens and committed a crime spree and then thought he might get caught, so he killed one of his accomplices. And we sent him to prison for the rest of his life. And that's just the ones I'm thinking about sitting right here. And you know what's common in all of those? They all committed violations of my state's law. They were caught by my state's law enforcement. They were prosecuted by my state's prosecutors. They are serving time in my state's prisons. And if and when they ever get out, the United States has said they need to be sent out of this country because of what they did. There's a list, you're holding up photos, General. There's a list on the Department of Homeland Security's website. It has about 280, 290 people like that in my state of Kansas. And you know what? We haven't made headlines like Minneapolis. We haven't made headlines like Memphis. We haven't made headlines like Los Angeles. And you know why? Because our cops are professionals and our politicians, by law, allow them to do their job.
And that is a good point from the gentleman from Kansas. We're going to head back over here. This is a real hot one that's coming up.
Our members.
Okay, thank you. I don't want that to get away. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Behind me, I have 3 documents.
So here we go. This guy
from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right,
this is Thomas Massey from Kentucky, 4th District. He is a Republican from Kentucky, Shelbyville, Covington, and Garrison. He He turns up the heat here.
Is an email that was sent by the victims' lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact, or sorry, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known. And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this.
Oh.
Now, your your deputy attorney general.
Les Wexner will be testifying on the 18th, by the way. They are bringing out Les Wexner. I cannot wait.
Said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over-redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI, and it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Chairman.
This is how this works.
Can I have my time back?
Mr.
Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from
All right, I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman, may I give my answer on that? It's a political joke, and I need to give my answer on that.
We'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his next question.
It's my time.
Within 40 minutes, you asked me a question. Within 40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
Red-handed?
Whoa.
There was one redaction.
Catching you red-handed. Thomas Massey bringing it in hot.
Out
Where
of
he's
over
listed as a co-conspirator.
4,700, and we invited you in. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician. You need to get on these matters.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules here.
There is no credible information. None. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did you talk about Epstein?
I am reclaiming my time. I'm glad you're asking about Merrick Garland.
You don't get to reclaim time
this is bigger than Watergate.
When I don't answer a question the way
This goes over 4 administrations. You don't have to go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know, at what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
The gentleman's time has expired.
You didn't answer the question.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, could she answer the question?
Chairman, I was wondering. The gentlelady's
You see
allowed.
his reaction
Attorney
to
General's
that?
allowed to respond the way she wants to respond.
Spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
Now,
where the
I want to
most
know, at
transparent-
what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because
Did you
our
see his reaction?
Epstein
Watch
Files
this.
Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against
Watch.
it, and you were one of them, hypocrite.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, could she answer the question?
Chairman, I was wondering. The gentlelady's allowed, the Attorney General's allowed to respond the way she wants to respond to any member's questions, Republican, Democrat.
I have unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized for a UC.
All right. This is an example. I'm submitting these 302 forms that are entirely redacted, even when you go to look at them.
Without objection.
I'm submitting a witness statement that implicates Les
Without objection.
Wexner.
Without objection.
I'm submitting an article from the New York Times that the DOJ released nude photos and identifiable pictures of the victims. I'm submitting a letter from AG Bondi to Cash Patel, imploring him to quit keeping the files when you found out that they were keeping files from you, because they're still redacting files that you.
Chairman, are we going to
recess
for votes? Yes, we are.
I'm submitting for unanimous consent a document of 17 individuals who've resigned because of the Epstein Files.
Without objection. Just want to check on how much time we have left in votes, but one thing I've learned here of late that they'll wait on us. How much time do we have? Oh, they just called. Okay. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Maryland.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to start by saying I appreciate what you said,
Attorney
General Bondi, and you said it to me personally, that you take the personal security.
Representative Jamie Raskin from Maryland. These are the heavy hitters, guys. These are the ones that really put on their political dancing shoes, right? So a Democrat from Maryland Judiciary Committee ranking member. So he is a ranking member of this committee right now.
Of every member of Congress seriously, and that people can contact you about that. And in these times, that's a very serious matter. So I thank you for that. Article 2, Section 1, Clause 7 of the Constitution is the Domestic Emoluments Clause. And it says that the president is limited to his salary in office and cannot receive any other money from the federal government while he's in office. It cannot be increased by $1. This president is the first president in U.S. history who has repeatedly sued the federal government for $230 million for the judicial search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, which was perfectly lawful and was never struck down. But now he's suing the IRS for $10 billion. He's suing the IRS for $10 billion, which I think is around 80% of its annual budget, because his tax returns were leaked. And they were illegally leaked by a private contractor who actually is in prison now, Charles Littlejohn. But he wants $10 billion. Now, but I want to ask you the question of whether you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for you to settle that $10 billion case or any of the other claims that the president has made against the government. He himself has remarked It's interesting because I'm the one that makes the deal, right? And he says, I kind of have to work it out with myself. Do you think it would violate the Domestic Emoluments Clause for the president to work out a deal from people who are his subordinates under his unitary executive theory to get money in one of these cases?
I'm not going to discuss pending litigation.
Okay, so theoretically you're saying because his privacy rights were violated in that tax case, and they were. I'm with the president on that. I mean, his Mar-a-Lago thing is ridiculous, but there's no doubt that his tax returns, despite the fact that he promised to release them, despite the fact that every other president released the tax returns, he suffered embarrassment when it showed that he hadn't paid taxes for several years, and he had a right for that not to happen. Now, I want to turn back to the Epstein survivors, because President Trump may have been a little bit embarrassed by the release of those tax returns. How much do you think the claims of these survivors are worth? As the good congressman from Kentucky just pointed out, there were lots of survivors who had decided, for reasons of their own, never to release their names. That determination was represented to people in Congress, and we built it into our federal law that their names could not be released, and yet you published their names, their phone numbers, their addresses, personally identifying information. If Donald Trump can get $10 billion, theoretically, from the Department of Justice, how much should these people get for a far worse violation of their privacy rights and a far greater danger established to them in their lives?
Do you even know who Chase Mulligan is? You're so obsessed with, you don't, do you?
I'm going to teach you the rules again. You're the Attorney General of the United States. We have rules here.
You're obsessed with him.
You're the Attorney General of the United States.
With obsessed with Donald Trump. You have Trump derangement syndrome.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like my time
Mulligan will be
restored. I'd like my time restored.
In your district. In your district, and you don't even know about it, about keeping children safe from online predators.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Maryland. The gentleman can proceed.
Yeah, and I want the whole country to look at this. Because this is the Attorney General of the United States, whose job is law enforcement. We've never had a witness who has misunderstood our rules and been unable to conform his or her conduct to our rules before.
And by the way, make sure if you are subscribed, hit that notification bell, because I do have a special coming up about Delane. So put your notifications on all, and I think you'll really enjoy it.
5 minutes. And so we use our time to ask you specific questions.
How long are you giving me to
Excuse me, I'm not yielding to you right now. I'd like that second retort too. So, Ms. Bondi, the way it works is we ask you a question and you answer it. And if you go off on a wild goose chase, another tangent, you start reading statistics, or you start talking about stuff going on in our district. And by the way, I invite you to my district. Come to my district, but that's not what we're here to do today. Okay, so when you do that, then we're allowed to say we reclaim our time. At that point, you have to be quiet. You have no choice. You have to be quiet. So I hope you understand the rule at this point. Now, here's what I want to ask you. You're in law enforcement. We've seen all kinds of evidence of crimes. And when we go over to the Department of Justice for the 4 computers for every member of Congress, we see more evidence of crimes. Will you create a joint task force of the Department of Justice and governors and state attorney generals and district attorneys across the country to investigate the crimes that have taken place against these victims and more than 1,000 like them? The DOJ is not doing its job. Will you create a task force with state and local law enforcement to make that happen?
Gentlelady can respond if she wants to.
Thank you, Chairman. He called Chase Mulligan a wild goose chase and didn't even know who he was. He is a defendant in your own district who preyed on girls.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, you know what? If he were part of the Epstein investigation, you wouldn't do anything about it.
Online chat rooms and committed sextortion. Yet he didn't even know in your tiny little district who he was.
Mr. Chairman, she's embarrassing you.
He's about to be
This is your committee, and she is embarrassing you.
Shame on you.
The time of the gentleman has expired. I would remind the committee that last Congress, Secretary Mayorkas was here numerous times, and he wouldn't answer our questions, even when we sent them to him ahead of time in writing. So that's what we've had to deal with. I think the Attorney General is doing just fine. We have votes shortly. I will go to the gentleman from Virginia, and then we will take a break to head to the floor.
I thank the chairman, Attorney General Bondi. Thank you for being here. And
Wow.
I wanted to thank you for your work at DOJ in restoring the rule of law, encouraging transparency surrounding Jack Smith's partisan investigations into President Trump, declassifying information about the Russia collusion hoax, cracking down on sanctuary jurisdictions, and establishing the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Let me first go to securing the border and immigration enforcement. Our new governor has recently rescinded 287G cooperation between the state and ICE. Can you talk about, have you evaluated the public safety impact, how that would affect safety in Virginia to withdraw that support and what that would do to criminal activity involving illegal immigrants in Virginia?
Yes, it would be detrimental. And as you know, Congressman, one of the top members of MS-13 in the entire country
Well, that's
was living in Virginia.
that is the story, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, Pam Bondi's testimony isn't about one official, one president, one predator. It's about whether a system, okay, that protected Jeffrey Epstein for years is finally willing to turn the spotlight on itself. You know, it's not just the polished statements, the legal phrases. Even if one little bit of truth slips through, one email, one decision, one name, that cracks the wall that is around the Epstein Files. And these hearings could be the moment everything starts to unravel, which would be great. So I'm going to be watching the follow-up, whether the House Judiciary Committee issues more subpoenas, demands more documents, and brings in more witnesses. If you want to stay ahead of all those moves instead of catching the watered-down recap later, make sure you're subscribed. We do this all live. Turn on your notifications and hit the like so this coverage keeps getting pushed after we are off today. And I am going to be coming back later. We're going to be doing some more coverage on the Guthrie case, and we will be looking at more coverage of Ghislaine Maxwell. So make sure you hit those notifications. The truth is a moving target. I will see you on the next one. Thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Have a great day.